everybody, this is Dr. Joe Borio with this week's Thot Flash. I did a post on Facebook, and I talked about us trying to get together. And I say this, I want to repeat some of what I said, but I say this with the greatest degree of respect. I see so many great chiropractors, committed chiropractors, passionate chiropractors, opening up, different associations. And I've heard recently there's some associations now that represent women in chiropractic. There's some associations now that are representing different ethnic groups within chiropractic. And they have on and off over the years. We start to look at our national and international representation with associations. We start to look at our states, local districts with associations. We start to look at different countries, their different provinces and so forth, different areas with different associations. You know, when you step back and you look at it, I mean, guys, we got to ask ourselves, do we really need another association? You know, when we look at the power of a laser, and I remember I listened to a mentor many years ago, and he had shared that, and that still stays with me today, that when you look at a laser, you know, a laser is very powerful. It's very focused. It's a recruitment of a whole bunch of photons that decided to go in one direction, holding each other as close as they could, it says. And as a result, the effects of that are amazing. It's spectacular. And therefore, it's allowed to make some changes. It's allowed to do some work. It's allowed to change history. And we got to start looking at ourselves that way. I mean, I constantly question, you know, I look at pediatrics, and I know that the pediatric patient or member or human has a different score of analysis and evaluation than a teenager, than an adult, certainly different than a senior. And women have different changes and need a different evaluation analysis than men, certainly at different ages. And then we start to look at people with different diseases when they come into our office. They have many different presentations with many different problems that require a change in your evaluation and analysis on the adjustment and how you're going to do certain things. I agree with all that, but to start putting specialties in the profession, and I've seen that, you know, when I hear about pediatric chiropractic, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be individuals teaching us how to better evaluate and adjust babies and children. I'm not saying that, but then they have a specialty in the profession. I don't get it. I mean, I'm as eager and as motivated and as excited and as passionate, and I feel as purposeful to adjust an infant right out of mom's womb as I am to adjust the 94, 96-year-old that walks into my office and says, you know, I need an adjustment, or I need help, or can you help me? I'm just as motivated. And all of those people need a different set of eyes, a different evaluation, a different set of clinical criteria for you to ensure that your adjustment is effective, that it's holding, where to adjust them, when they need to be adjusted. I mean, all of those things are critical and they're important. I don't deny that. But the idea that, you know, there should be specialties, and on top of that, there have to be different groups to represent us. And now there have to even be subcategories. It's not enough that we have the ICA and the ACA, just that in and of itself, and then we have all different other organizations out there. But now we need subgroups to split us even further, to say, well, if you're a woman, you're going to be part of this chiropractic. You know, we're going to have a women's association. We're going to have a male association. We're going to have Italians. We're going to have African Americans. You know, and I question, are the needs of that subcategory really not being met in such a specific way that we need to get together? Are we that insecure? As we divide ourselves, we weaken ourselves. The more we splinter ourselves, the more. Why? Because even though you may not see that, even though those associations are set up with the greatest, I think, sense of good intention and a noble cause, I don't deny that. But what happens is you start to represent the group, and you start to represent the group's needs rather than the whole. And it totally is incongruent with chiropractic. You know, we're there to represent the whole. And the smaller we get, listen, we all have so much time. You can only go to so many meetings. You can only listen to so many emails and MP3s, or read so many emails and MP3s and video thought flashes and all these things. You only have so much time. So if you're in a group, you're going to start focusing on that. How much money do you have? How much money can you give to these groups? Now you start focusing, your money to this group and this group and this group, as opposed to, listen, we got to start standing behind one group. And it says, hey, listen, I'm a chiropractor, right? And I got a set of hands to adjust people. That's the group. That's the group we got to start supporting. Are you a chiropractor? Yeah, well, then let's get together. We got to make a decision today that, listen, we have to agree that we are not always going to agree. I mean, we all have to get that. We're not always going to agree. But for God's sakes, if we don't agree, let's try to maybe not even get along, but let's try to debate our differences. Let's try to move our level of consciousness and understanding of each other and progress chiropractic in the future within the groups we have, and try to cut them down, as opposed to, let's just make this statement now, we don't need another group. I mean, we don't need another group. We don't need another splintering of an already splintered profession. We're all wearing different uniforms and we're all firing at each other when we aren't the problem. Listen, over 1 million people a year die. Over 1 million people a year die from the paradigm that's out there. And we're so caught up in the petty differences amongst ourselves, we've lost sight of the prize. The prize is that the philosophy and the paradigm and the metaphysical aspect and the science and the art of what we do and how we approach the body is so unique and so acceptable, widespread. There's no splintering, that every human being needs to be under care, that every human being has some beautiful intelligence within their body. It doesn't separate amongst any religion. It doesn't really separate amongst any intellectual thought. Just about anyone understands and can reside on the fact that there is some level of intelligence within the body, whatever you want to call it. I mean, so that's how beautiful these guys were when they use those words to specifically describe how the body works. And we recognize that with grave humility. And if we can then bring this to the world, we change the world. We change it. We've got 60,000 chiropractors on the planet. We can change the world. And I don't just mean from a health standpoint. I mean how we treat each other as human beings, how we move forward, how we interact as human beings, how we approach every aspect of everything, how we look at everything, specifically life, how we'll look at the planet. It'll all be different. That level of consciousness will be different. Instead, we want to open up an association for women chiropractors and male chiropractors and Italian chiropractors and African American chiropractors, and here's this international association, here's this one, and listen, no one's being represented except for those people in the group, and the only people that are even recognized in the group are the members of the group. And it makes us weak, it makes it look foolish, it makes us look disorganized, it makes us look like some family out there that nobody gets along. And that's been our story. And I think not only do we owe Dee Dee Palmer and BJ Palmer and Mabel Palmer and Stevenson and Harvey Lillard and all those awesome men and women who came before us, not only do we owe them more, because we do, we owe humanity more. We owe ourselves more. We owe the world more. And, I believe as a chiropractor that we are that chosen group. I really do. And I want to believe, I choose to believe it, that this is our time. This is our time. We are that generation. We are the group of chiropractors that are going to formulate at least the consciousness, the agreement that says we're going to work together for the prize. And the prize is a healthier planet. And who in the world could ever argue with that? But it's going to take you. It's going to take you listening to this and taking action. It's going to take you listening to this and doing something about it. That means calling your friends and calling your people that maybe aren't your friends in chiropractic and say, listen, we need to get together and go to these little philosophy groups, whether it's EPOC or CORE or Focus, or, we need to go to these places where there's mentorship, And that's what I love about the meetings that you see, is these little groups. You know, they're not privy to one association or anyone in particular. They're just a coming together of chiropractors. We need to start there and inviting people to all those groups so that we can make a difference in the world. Because we got to understand something. We've got something that is so beautiful and so precious and so pure that works under principle and law. It works under a principle and a law that will change the world. I hope what I'm saying resonates with you, and I really hope what I'm saying to each and every one of you makes you want to do more, that I can touch you inside and make you decide to do more. I really do. Guys, have a great week serving. Samurai, to serve. Be good samurai this week, guys. Enjoy, love those people you serve, spend time with your family, love the people in your life. I can't wait to talk to you next week. Don't forget, we got an event coming up with Christopher Kent and myself in Philadelphia on May 4th and 5th. It's going to be great. We'll add some certainty to your practice. In the meantime, may your innate always flow from above down, because I love you for loving what I love, guys. Have a great week serving.
Best friend gave me the best advice. He said each day